Creating images with generative AI is only half the story. To make them more detailed, we have to upscale them. And upscaling just does not mean increasing the resolution. For instance, I have the render of this particular architectural building and I wanted to add details to the trees or to the concrete finish, and once I upscale them, you will see the trees look better, the concrete finish looks better, and even the reflection has more details to it. Or in the case of this particular car, I wanted to see more details to this spokes wheel or the headlight. So if I upscale this particular image, you will see the paint now looks better and you see the reflection of the ground more in detail. Also the spoke wheels has become better, including the headlight. So upscaling is not only limited to the field of architecture. Any image you want to look better, you can always upscale. Or for example, we have this particular suit and I wanted to upscale it for it to look much better. So I upscaled it and now you see the shine and the glossiness of this particular suit looks much better than what it was earlier. Or simply if you want to make your images more expressive, for example, I had this particular image and I just wanted to make it look better. So I upscaled it and now you see the skin tone of this particular hand looks much better. Even the watch looks nicer. And that's what upscaling does. It will help you add more details to your images. It will make it look more better, and as a result you will also get a high resolution image. And that is what we'll be looking at in this particular video on how to upscale images that we have done so far. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Kedar, and on this channel we talk about design, architecture, parametric design and generative AI. And before we begin today's video on upscaling, I wanted to thank you all because we just crossed 500 subscribers and this really means a lot to me. So I appreciate you sticking around and watching my long form content videos. The other day I got a notification from YouTube and I was scared. I was like, did I do something wrong? But the notification said 500 subscribers, your channel is attracting more viewers. And this felt really good. So I took a quick screenshot and I wanted to share this with you all. So thank you for subscribing and for sticking around. This helps me make better videos, better content. So really thank you and I appreciate it. Now let's jump to today's topic, which is upscaling. So in the previous videos, we have looked how to control images using ControlNet, how to transfer style or merge style using IP adapter. Now the logical next step is to upscale those images, because no matter which model you use, you're going to get some details that don't look really nice, and that's why we need to upscale images. But unlike other concepts of generative AI like IP adapter or ControlNet, upscaling has been there for a very long time. So you might have seen those old cameras which give you negative and then you get a print of it. So they were upscaling then as well. So upscaling as a concept existed very long time, and it's not something new for the field of AI. We just have to increase the resolution or add more details to it. But it was very difficult for me to figure out where to start this particular video. Do I need to go in the beginning of how upscaling has started? But then I was like, let me look at the notes that are there in ComfyUI. So the notes that are there in ComfyUI are these two, which is called Upscale Image By, and then there is something called as Load Upscale Model. Now I have segregated them because these models, which I like to call them as interpolation model, and these are upscaling models. And what's the difference, you might ask? So first let's look at the names of these models. So for example, interpolation models has all of these, and we will look at all of these models in detail. And upscale model has all of these. Upscale model is really simple because what the name says, they do that. For example, if you are doing something like a cartoon, you use anime. If you want more details, you use ultra sharp. But we will of course see all of these in details. And I wanted to figure out what exactly is the differentiation between these two. So let's look at the interpolation model. What does it mean? So it means they're going to just stretch the pixels. They're fast but very basic because they will in the end, no matter what, give you a blurry output because they are formulated to just guess the pixels. They take only one step and no extra details is added, and these are prior to 2000, okay, 2000 year. Whereas upscale model, they add intelligent details. They are slow, but they give really good result because they are trained on images that improves the image quality, and they have multiple steps, and these have been in existence from 2014 till now. So that's why I was saying that irrespective of AI or not, upscaling model has existed even before concepts like ControlNet or IP adapter, because we have to constantly upscale images, whether it is digital, let's say in Photoshop, or physical using the negatives of the camera roll. Now quickly, let's see what kind of output you get using both of these models. So for example, if you use a simple interpolation model, so my input was 1024 by 1024. And the output you see is 2048 by 2048, which is basically doubling it. And you see there is hardly any change in the particular output. It is just extending or stretching the particular pixels, but the image remains blur. And on the other hand, we have upscale model, which basically you see add more details, add more texture, and makes your image looks really nice and production ready. So this is what we'll be looking at in this particular video, which is upscale model. We will be using interpolation model just to increase the resolution or the pixels of the image, but then we will be using upscale model to add more details and sharpness to particular image. And because this has been done way before Gen AI, it was difficult for me to pinpoint on this timeline, like where do we know how these models are trained, because I like to go a little bit in detail, as you might have seen in my earlier videos. So I quickly went and saw the research paper that I've been done, and I made a quick timeline. So basically these models started from 2014, okay, which is like 10-11 years earlier, and the first paper was released something called as image super resolution using deep convolution networks. In 2015 we had accurate image super resolution using very deep convolution networks. Okay, these two we are not using currently. The current upscale models that have been trained are not from these particular papers, but I just wanted to give you like, okay, it is started from 2014. The current model that have actually been trained are from the GAN revolution, which started in 2017, and GAN, if you don't know, is basically called as generative adversarial network. The first paper was ESRGAN, which is basically super resolution GAN, that came in 2017. Then we have enhanced super resolution GAN that came in 2018. Then we have training real world blind super resolution with pure synthetic data in 2021. So all of these models kind of focus on these two, which is ESRGAN and Real-ESRGAN. Okay. And after that, post 2021, we have all the community trained models, but the idea lies in these two. So the base or the foundation model on which these images or models the models are trained is ESRGAN, and this one, which is Real-ESRGAN. And in this today's video, we'll be looking at detail what Real-ESRGAN means. Okay, and I had to give you a little bit of brief of how this started. So I didn't want to directly randomly jump into like what is Real-ESRGAN, because like I said, unlike IP adapter and control net, image resolution has been there for more than 50-60 years when we had cameras as well. And the community model started coming in from 2021. That could be your ultra sharp or anime, which we will look later in the video. So now let's look at this particular paper, which is Real-ESRGAN, training real world blind super resolution with pure synthetic data. And here they are quickly comparing with other models. So if you see bicubic was an interpolation model, this is with the earlier ESRGAN, which came in 2018. This is in 2021. And you see the difference is quite substantial. Okay. And like I said, ESRGAN stands for Enhanced Super Resolution Generative Adversarial Network. And by now you might have guessed that this video is going to be very technical, because there is no creativity. We are not going to prompt anything. We already have the images that we have done. We need to make them big and add more detailings to it. So there will be more words in the research papers, and there will be more numbers when we are creating the script or the workflow, because that's how this works. So if you're really you are wondering that is this going to be creative video, this is going to be really technical video. But once you make this workflow, you don't have to change anything. Just upload an image, run, and you will get super high resolution images. Okay, but I just wanted to tell you all in the beginning itself that this is going to be a very technical video. So let's go further in this paper of Real-ESRGAN. And further in the paper, they showcase again comparing with different upscaling methods. So here you will see with Real-ESRGAN, it does well with text, it does well with this kind of patterns, with kind of detailed patterns not so well, but also you have to see that the zoom in area is so less and it's still doing a great job. Or for this example, you see the zoom in here in the mountains is so far behind, but it's still doing a great job. And I think this is a really good model on which the later models have been trained. Now let's look at the abstract of what it basically says, how this model is trained. Okay, so basically here I want to pinpoint one of the lines which basically says this model is trained with pure synthetic data. Specifically, a high order degradation modeling process is introduced to better simulate complex real world degradations. Okay, so what it is trying to say that we will be using synthetic data by simulating the real world degradations. Now what are degradations? So if you go down into this particular paper, here they will tell you, for example, when we take a photo with our cell phone, the photos may have several degradations, which could be camera blur, which could be sensor noise, could be sharpening artifacts or JPEG compression. We then do some editing and upload on the social media app, which introduces further compression and unpredictable noises. So this is what they are saying the degradation means, is all the noise that is there in images. And even if you consider app that we use today, which let's say for example WhatsApp, when you send an image to any particular person, they will receive image which is either blurry or has less resolution because it is super compressed. And that's what they're saying, that when they will train the images, they will add these degradations which could include a camera blur, a noise, sharpening or JPEG compression. Okay, and they will add it like this. So first what they will do, they will take lakhs of images, then they will either blur, resize, noise or do compression using all of these methods. And they will do this 2 times so that the AI trains how to remove this degradation, because the training of this upscaling model is very simple. You give it a degradation image and it will learn how to remove this, all of this degradation, and the model is trained. And to do that, to do the training process, they are using something called as a generator and a degenerator method, which is again carry forward from the previous method of ESRGAN. And that's why I said both ESRGAN and Real-ESRGAN have been used in training these future models. Okay, I've made a simple visualization to understand how this actually works. The first step is always collecting the data. Could be any images, not specifically to the field of architecture. Used to be lakhs and thousands of images. The second step is to basically degrade the image. So basically you're going to mesh them. You can add blur, resize, you can add noise, or you can compress the images. And this happens 2 times. Now, you'll be wondering why 2 times? Because in the earlier ESRGAN paper, they did it 1 time, which was, let's say ESRGAN model was like a lab test, and this real ESRGAN is more like the data that we, or the process that we use to train today's models. So in the earlier one, they're using 1 step. With here, they're using 2 steps. And the next step, this goes to a model training, which is basically called as a generator, which what it tries to do is basically tries to remove the degradation of the image to get the original image. Okay, and it kind of basically guesses it. So the next step is that you get the generated output, which is going to be a guess, because you can imagine that with diffusion models, you put the text and the image in the training process. But here only the images are going. So the generator doesn't really know what is the input image. What it only knows, it has this set of messy images that it has to clear so that you get a better image. Okay. And now how do we really train this? So then we have something called as a discriminator. Discriminator, again, my lisp, which basically looks at the original input image and the image generated by generator, and it compares, does it look real or it looks like a model has been created. Okay, and if it finds that okay, this is not a real image, an image created by model, it pushes it back to the generator. Then again we get a new guess image, and then goes to discriminator, and discriminator is like, okay, no, this is not true. So this constant battling between the generator and discriminator is what we call as a GAN training. So again, ESR, enhanced super resolution GAN training. So which is basically these AIs, or both neural network of generator and discriminator, constantly fighting to get a better output. Okay, and in essence that's what GAN means, which is generative adversarial networks, where generative means basically generate image, adversarial means 2 AIs fighting against each other. Here in this case they are trying to get better images, and the neural networks are networks, right? For in this case there's going to be generator and the discriminator. And over this constant battle, what's going to happen is that they push each other to get good images. So now the model that has been generated from a generator gets better and better at fixing the degraded images, and then the discriminator can no longer reliably tell whether the image is real or fake. Okay, so that's what the basic, in this is very simple training. You add your original set of inputs, then you mess them up, you give it to generator. Generator first guesses the images, then later on it puts it to discriminator, which says that no, this is not correct. They start battling each other. Then generator keeps on getting better and better until the discriminator realizes that okay, this is as close as the input image, and then the model is trained. Okay, in essence, simply understand the generator is fooling the discriminator, because generator does not know what is the input image. So it is going to create random guesses over and over again until the discriminator gets fooled, and then the model is trained. What a great analogy. You know, this is how like AI is fooling us these days by its own hallucination, and in the training process generator has to fool discriminator until it no longer differentiates between what is the real image and what is the generated image. Okay, and that's how these models are trained, which basically are the upscaling models. Okay, so I hope it's understood how upscaling models are trained. Now I wanted to compare different methods or different apps that are upscaling. For example, in the first one, so for this particular video, I'll be using this image as a constant because I find this is a little bit blurry. The textures are a little bit off, and also, we created with IP adapter. The trees don't look really great. So I'm using this as the base to test with different apps or different models. Okay. Now the first tool is basically Midjourney. If you just simply add your image and you get upscaling, you will get double resolution, but doesn't really do anything to the images. Of course, if you create an image in Midjourney and then upscale, you will see a drastic difference. But I personally have not noticed when you put a particular image and upscale it, it doesn't really do a good job. Then the next one is what we'll be looking at today, which is Ultimate HD Upscale using ComfyUI. And this I really like, because you see that it adds more sharpness to the particular image. It adds more textural details and the overall image looks more high quality and kind of production ready. And the next one is there is this app called as generative, which is like a go-to standard. If anybody is comparing upscaling models, they compare to this particular generative app. So basically this app started only as upscaling images. Now they also have style transfer and other things. But you will see how nice the results are. You see the grass gets better. They also add more texture. Even there is a lighting underneath this wooden ceiling and the overall image just looks better. So this is a easy, simple way. If you don't want to use ComfyUI, just go to generative, upload an image and it will give you a upscaled image. Simple. Okay. And the other thing that I use inside ComfyUI is something called as Flux Mania model. We haven't touched Flux yet. I think I need to make a dedicated, maybe 2-3 hour long video that tackles the entire Flux because there's so many things happening in Flux right now. But anyway, I personally use Flux Mania because I feel like it is not making it really gimmicky. It retains texture, it understands what the image is, but it is also heavy on GPU power. So we'll see when we look at Flux video. But just to compare them, all of them side by side. So you see with Midjourney, which is a basic $10 subscription, the upscaling really not that great. With Ultimate HD Upscale, it takes 1 to 2 minutes, and you see with the next 3 images, it is really not different. It is until and unless you need super detail, like you're like, no, this has to be precisely the way it is, then they change. But overall, you see they look really same. Ultimate HD Upscale takes 1 to 2 minutes. generative, if you are okay, you can spend like $39 a month. And this is simple. You upload image, and I think there is a credit limit also. I don't know I don't remember exactly how many images you can upscale, but yeah, it's super simple. Upload images and just click on upscale. And then Flux Mania is what I really like, but it takes 2 to 3 minutes. It's very GPU intense. So for this video, like I said, we'll be sticking to this particular Ultimate HD Upscale. Now let's look at comparing all the models. So first we'll compare the interpolation model, and then we'll compare the upscale model. So it's easy for you to decide which model you really like for your own use cases. So the interpolation model looks really simple. In Comfy, you will add your image, and there is a node called Upscale Model By. We can use upscaling method and how many times you want it. The output really is not gonna get really changed because, like I said, they are just stretching the pixels rather than adding any details to it. I made a quick kind of a video showing. So this is the old and you see the new, and you see there is hardly difference. Here you will see there is some details added, or here near the bush you will see that there is some detail added, but overall it doesn't really do anything. Okay, so I'll show you different models. So this again, the input and the output are going to look exactly same as each other, but there are different ones. So basically this is something called as near exact, which basically means that when it is stretching, copy the nearest pixel. Then there is something called as bilinear, which basically means that it's going to average. So let's say this is 1 pixel. It is going to average the neighboring 4 pixels and then stretch it. Okay. But you see the difference. I don't see much difference. Maybe I need to really zoom in. I don't see much difference in any of these models. Okay. And then there is something called as area, which the earlier one was looking at 4 pixels. This kind of looks at the generic area around the pixels and then stretches it. And then the next one is bicubic, where bilinear was looking at 4 neighboring. This looks at the 16 neighboring pixels and then kind of guesses what the next pixel could be. Again, really no difference between the models. You see hardly a little bit of difference. Okay. And then there is the last one, which is called as Lank-Ross. So basically this gives you, of all of these, there is a little bit of sharpness in this particular model. Okay. And this is the most recent one. So if I go back, I'm also trying to see if there is any difference, but I don't see any difference. If you see, let me know. But whenever I generally upscale, let's say I just want to make it 2 times or 3 times, I use this method because it is much sharper than the remaining other methods. Now let's look at the fun side. We look at upscaling models. Okay, so let's look at them. The first one is basically ESRGAN. Again, this has been trained from the paper that we looked at. And for all of these, my prompt is simple. I keep the same prompt everywhere. I just say masterpiece, high resolution detail, crisp edges, 8K resolution. That's it. I don't change this prompt at all. Okay, and now you will see the difference between the input and the output. I have made it purposely drastic so that we see the difference. It's not like I like this kind of drastic, but like, you might like this particular kind of style. So basically with upscaling, you also need to change the denoise value, which we'll see later on. Right now, I have kept it 0.55, so it add more drasticness and we will see different models. So like I said, the ESRGAN was the original foundational paper on which this real ESRGAN model was trained. And you see the difference I find is substantial. For example, here there was a water body in the input image. With ESRGAN, it is completely removed it, whereas the real ESRGAN still retains. We had only 3 furniture here. With ESRGAN, it kind of made this kind of a sofa. With real ESRGAN, it retains the details. So this is a really good model, real ESRGAN. And then the later ones are either trained on ESRGAN or real ESRGAN. I'm saying this word too many times, it's going to haunt me. But anyway, then the next one is basically anime sharp, which if you're upscaling some like, anime or cartoon, this is a very good image. One difference that I noticed is you see in this clouds, how they look very anime style. Let me go back. See, this looks more realistic. And this looks more anime with the hues of purple and blues and things like that. So if you have something like anime or cartoon, then go with anime sharp. And the next one is basically called ultra sharp, which basically, as it says, is going to give you detailed images. And this is the model that I generally use, also with combination with other model, but this is my go-to model always, which is 4x ultra sharp. And I like the way it, again, like I said, I have cranked this value too much, but generally you will not get this vibrant images. But I like the output. You see now here in the grass, it is added small, flowers. Here it is kind of stretched this greenery. So it sometimes add more details to it, which I appreciate. Okay. And then the next one is called NMKD SciX. Now this is really helpful when you're using with sharp lines or edges in your design. For instance, let me go back. So stare here. Okay. See here. I'm sorry. You see here, this is not that sharp. But if I change it, you see how sharp this edge is. Or even if you want to take this edge, okay, you see this image is more softer for eyes. This image is more sharper. Okay, even if you see the grass lines, this is more sharp. So this is what NMKD SciX does. And the last one is something called as 4x Full Hardy, which also is a really good model. It's kind of a balanced model and retains details as well. So if you like this kind of output, you can use this as well. I sometimes feel like this adds more details, like you see the flowers and you see it's added a house here rather than the base. But it's nice, you can test whatever you like, okay? But I keep shifting between these 4. So 4x Full Hardy, Anime, Ultra Sharp, and NMKD SciX. So I keep shifting between these 4. These are my 4 go-to models. If I'm doing something that is, like anime or caricature, I go with anime style. If I just want quick sharpness, I go with ultra sharp. If I want edges, I then go with NMKD. And if I want something that is relaxed, doesn't have more details to it, or just want to add some details but retain images, then I go with 4x Full Hardy. So it's up to you. You can test all of these 4 as well. Now let's go to the installation guide. Yay! I know this is going to be really technical. I need to be cheerful as well because there are so many pixels and so many things, and now my eyes are getting confused what is real and what is AI. But anyway, let's go to the installation guide. So the first thing, always you need to go to ComfyUI. Then you need to go to something called as manager. The installation process remains the same. Go to the manager. From there, go to something called as custom nodes manager, where you will install custom nodes. Now in this particular case, there is a lot of custom nodes to be installed. Ideally, we only need this, which is called as ComfyUI Ultimate SD Upscale. This is the major custom node we will be using. RG3 is just for comparison. The next one, like you see Comfy Roll, Essential, this DERFUU or the Comfy Mat, it is just the algorithm of changing the pixels to a better resolution. Okay. Then we need to download models as well. So again, go back to the manager. In this time, go to the model manager. And here you need to type here Upscale, and you will see these are all the models that we have. I have downloaded all of them because I keep testing it. So basically you have something called as 2x, 4x and 8x, which basically means 2x means double it, 4x means 4 times, 8x means 8 times. I generally, like I said, use 4x because I find it's good, because if I use 8x, it becomes too big. I then need to figure out how much to reduce it. and 2x sometimes really doesn't give me good, and there's only one model for it. If all of these were also available at 2x, maybe I would have used. But right now I use these 4, and you can download whichever you feel like. Okay. Apart from that, we need to use a different checkpoint model, because I have tested with multiple checkpoint model like the Real-ESRGAN or any other one. The node, which is Ultimate HD Upscale, works really well when the models are also HD. So the model that I generally use is realistic version v6.01b1 with this version 5.1 hyper VAE, and like I said, always use the baked VAE model, because again otherwise you have to add VAE node as well. Okay, so this is the model that we will be using. Again, it's a recent model, updated Feb 15th this year. Okay, and it's fairly small, it's just 2 GB, so it should be fine. Now let's look at the changes that we need to do to the ComfyUI workflow. Okay, so this is our base workflow where we have a checkpoint model, the prompt, the resolution, and the case sampler. Okay, now what do we need to really change in this particular workflow? So what we need to do, firstly, we will input our image, whatever is the image is. So that automatically means that image resize is going to go, because the resolution comes from this. Then we need to say load upscale model. So which model do you want to use, which is the 4x anime, ultra sharp, whatever. Then we will need to upscale image by, because you can imagine, let's say if I upscale this image 4x, it will be too big. So then I generally, what I do, I add something called as upscale image by, which is those, nearest method, or basically stretching the pixel method, so it can reduce it. Okay. And then the ultimate HD upscale, either you can use one particular same upscale model, or you can use 2 upscale models. So that's how the workflow looks like. It's super simple. This node is going to be crazy long, and I will detailedly break it down. Okay. And then the workflow looks something like this, which is super simple. So first what we do is we will upload our image, could be any image. And now you see the resolution here is 1024 by 1024. Okay. Then what I do, I add something called as a nearest HDXL resolution. Why do I do this? Because let's say there are some images which are not good resolution. Maybe it's like 3000 by 3000, or it's like 280 by 290. We don't know what is the resolution of the image. So generally I like to add these 2 nodes, which basically helps you to get the next HDXL resolution, or the nearest one. So I add nearest HDXL resolution node, and then I add image resize. So basically it will resize it using this new HDXL resolution. And here again the interpolation remains as line cross, which is the recent one and has more details. Method I keep fill or sharp. Condition I keep it to always, and multiple of I keep it to 0. Okay. After that, we need to use upscale image using model, because we need to use an external model to upscale it. In this case, right now I'm using this 4x NMKD SciX. So you can imagine this particular image is going to be 4 times higher, which is too big. So 1024 into 4, which is like 4096. That will be too big of a resolution. So that is why you need to use something called as upscale image by, so we can reduce it half. Okay. I know, like I said, it's going to be technical, but that's how this workflow is. And then with ultimate SD upscale, this is very simple. The checkpoint model, your prompt, negative prompt remains the same. And here, like I said, either you can use the same model here in this case, or you can use the different model. You can use the earlier one, the same model can be connected here, or you can use a new model. That's also completely fine. Now let's break down this huge node. Okay, this is the longest node I think I have ever seen in ComfyUI, but let's break it down. Okay, and this particular node works with something called as tiling. Now, what is this? What is this new concept? Why do you introduce so many concepts, Kedar? Okay, so basically tiling means whenever you have to upscale any particular image, right, you will break it down into different parts. Because imagine, let's say it's 1000 resolution image, directly jumping to 2000, it's a lot for your CPU, GPU. It will take, but it might take a longer time. That is why this concept of tiling comes in, where we break images into separate parts and then we push into upscaling. Okay, so if you look at this node, okay, the beginning part is similar to K-sampler, okay, where you have your seed, you have control after generate, you have your steps, CFG, sampler, scheduler, denoise. These all are similar to the K-sampler. The next part is what is different, and this is totally for tiling, because we break images into separate parts to upscale them. Okay, and this is not only with ComfyUI. Even if you take any apps, so let's say this is the image that I upscaled with Magnific, and here you see these lines, you will notice that it is divided this into grid. There are only few images in which I could notice this, because it only comes up when you have a same looking background or when images are lighter, Here in this case, you will not really notice where is the grid, but on top, you see, you will notice here. So no matter what apps or what tool you will use, they will use this tiling. You see, there is a line here, there's a line here, because that is what allows them to make or upscale images very quickly. Okay. Otherwise, like I said, jumping suddenly to a double or a triple resolution takes a lot of time. So all of these apps, and even what we'll be doing in ComfyUI, is breaking them into simple tiles and then upscaling. Okay. Now similarly with ComfyUI, I upscaled this particular image, and you will see there is a line here. I just increased the sharpness of this line so you can see this better. So you will see there is a drastic line here and there is a drastic line here. Okay. So basically all of these images, whenever you will upscale, will be broken down into tiles. Could be 4 tiles, 9 tiles, 16 tiles, whatever, it depends on your computer. And this actually helps to run it on any lower GPU machines as well, because you don't directly need to make a 2000 resolution image. You can say that, okay, I have a 1000 image and I want to upscale it to 2000. I will break this into 4 parts and make 1000, 1000, 1000, 1000. So in the end, I get 2000 resolution image. So that's why tiling is super important. Now let's look at the different nodes or the parameter that exist in this tiling part of Ultimate SD Upscale. The first one, which basically called node model type, if you keep it to none, it will not trigger. So you see the output generally remains the same as the input. And if you keep it to linear, then you will get your output. Okay. Now what does linear mean? So use this linear process when you want the balanced and the speed output. I generally keep it to linear. And why is it called linear? Because the way it upscale images, it will do this 1, 2, 3, and then 4, because it will follow a linear progression. Apart from that, there is something called as chess, which you might have understood by the name. It will do diagonally. So this becomes image 1, this will become image 2, this will become image 3, this will become image 4, and then it will stitch together. This is generally useful to hide seams. I don't use it because it takes longer time, Now it's only 4 parts. Imagine 16 parts. It has to do 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, then like that, and then it's going to be really a mess. Okay. So I generally like to keep it to linear, which is super simple and straightforward. Then the next 2 parameters are basically what is the width and the height of your image of the tile that you want. Okay. The common sizes include 512 by 512 or 768 or 1024, depending on the checkpoint model. So if you are using SD, don't go below that, because the model is not trained images below this particular resolution. Okay. So you can manually adjust this to whatever size you want it. So for instance, basically, let's say you have an image of 1024 by 1024. If you make it by 512 by 512, you will get into 4 parts. Then the next one is something called as a mask blur, which basically means you have those seams, right? You have those grid line. How smoothly will they blend with the images? Okay. For example, if I keep mask blur at 0, you see it looks like these are 4 separate images, because this grid is super sharp. Again, don't worry, this is not how we will get the output. I have cranked the values so much that you see. Otherwise, if I would make a nice image, you will not see the seam lines. Okay. So you see these seam lines when you make mask blur at 0, you see the sharp. When you make mask blur at 64, you see there is blur between these lines. Okay. And the image looks better. So I generally keep the mask blur to the highest, which is 64. Now the next one is something called as tile padding, which basically means, let's say you have a grid of 4. How much of this first grid you want to overlap onto the second image, so we don't see the same much and it blends better. Okay. For instance, if I keep the tile padding as 0, you will see it will do again the same. The size does not increase. But let's say I increase the tile padding. Let's say firstly we have this grid of 4 paths, and then my output resolution has to be 2048 because I want to double it. That means that the size of one grid is 1024. And if I want to increase the padding by 512, then what happens is that this resolution becomes big and the padding size becomes this much, which basically means you will be easily able to hide the seams. So generally what I do, I don't keep this big. I keep the resolution or number of this to 256 so that it doesn't stitch to the image, but rather jumps and overlaps and makes it looks better. Okay, so you will see with tile padding of 0, you get the same grid line, and with tile padding of 256, even though this image is super drastic, because it is overlapped when it is create image. So what's happening is that the first image is this big, the second is this, the third is this, and the fourth is this. So automatically all of them kind of look more cohesive. So add a tile padding always. Depends again how much you want. I keep generally to 256 or 512. So there is a big overlap and the image looks better and doesn't have this seam. Okay. Then the next one is something called as seam fix mode, which basically helps you blending the seams. Okay. So the first one is basically none, which is no blending. It gives you fast, but you will see the seam. I generally keep this to none because I am increasing the padding value. So it doesn't really matter for me. So you can do either or. Either you can keep the padding value to less and then play with these parameters. I keep the padding value high, so I don't need to touch this and my outputs are much faster. Okay. The next method is something called as band pass. So what happens, it creates these 4 images and then you will see in the middle it is passing a band, so it tries to gel them together. Again, I have cranked the value so you see the seam, and this number comes here, which is seam fix width. So this is deciding what should be the width of this seam fix. Okay. The next one is basically called as half tile. So what it does, it renders this 4 and then again it does the half tile. So what it's going to do, render 1, 2, 3, 4, and again it will render this so that it will try to remove the seams. Okay, it doesn't have not removed the seam, but that's what it does. And the last method here is something called as half tile plus intersection, which basically mean again half tile 1, 2, 3, 4, then doing these small parts, and then again it will pass a band vertically and horizontally. So you might imagine this has to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It will run 8 times and that much time it will take. So like I said, I keep this to none. I don't change it and none of these parameters really matter. So if you want, you can play with these next parameter. If you keep it to none, they don't matter. But if you keep it to remaining 3, these will matter. The first one is seam fix denoise, which basically means when you're passing on the seam, how much you want. The lower you keep, the better. I generally would keep it to 0.2. Then what is the width of the seam that you want to pass? Then what is the blur? Similarly to this mask blur and tile padding, and then seam fix padding, how much you want to overlap. Okay. I don't really touch because like I said, I keep this to none. And then the last one, which basically means force uniform tiles, which means make sure all tiles are same size. So I keep this to true. And that's what this huge long node is. It's super simple. I only change the 1, 2, 3, the first 5. This I keep it to none. So then I can ignore all this and I keep this to true. Okay. And my preferred parameters are this. So the upscale by, I keep it to 1 because I'm already adding the image. I don't want to again change numbers because sometimes I might forget. The seed depends on you. The control of the generate depends on you. I keep the steps less. I keep it only 10 so that it gives me a faster result and doesn't add more, weirdness of AI. And the CFG, I crank it a little bit more. I keep it to 10. Then these two generally come from a checkpoint model, which is a sampler and scheduler. Now this is really important, denoise. So if you remember from my control net example, if you have an image and if you want to get the same exact image, we keep the denoise as 0. But if you want to add the total prompt to that image, we keep the denoise as 1. So you can imagine if I keep the denoise as 1, it's going to go to the prompt and not to my input image. So I like to keep this value somewhere between 0.2 to 0.4. Then the mode, like I told you, I keep it linear. And then this one, I generally don't go less than 512, which is your tile width and tile height, because even the base SD models have been trained for 512 by 512. Okay. And then the mask blur, like I said, I keep it to 64. Then tile padding, I keep it to 256. These ones don't really matter to me because I keep it to none. And the last one is set to true. Okay. So that's what this node is. If you directly copy paste these numbers, I assure you, you will get a really good result. Now let's check the denoise changes. Like I said, if you keep it to 0, it's going to be same as the input. If you keep it to 1, it's going to change drastically. So let's see that. So for instance, if I keep the denoise to 0, you see even if I upscale, it looks very similar to the input image because you are telling AI that no, I want whatever is the original image. Then if I make it 0.2, you will see now it adds more details. And it is similar to the input, but it is changing a little bit. If I make it 0.4, which I think is a really good number, you see now there is a variation little bit, but also we retain the original input image. And if I make it to 0.6, you will see how horrible it is. But here you can see that this kind of tall structure which was there is maintained here. And why is it doing this? It is following the prompt. So it's doing masterpiece, high resolution details, crisp edges, 8K resolution. So it is trying to go more towards the prompt than to your image. Okay. And if I make it more, if I make it to 0.8, you will see it looks completely different. Like I don't know what this image is based on. Okay. And like I said, my preferred parameters are 0.2 to 0.4. If you're working with faces, it could be human face or something that is photograph, go with 0.2. If it is an AI generated image, then go with 0.4. Okay. Now the next part, I don't know how many of you are going to appreciate me doing this, but I always like to add some kind of parametricness to a particular script, especially in this particular case, because for instance, let's say we have this image, which is 1024 by 1024. Okay. Here it's easy for me to guess what would be the tile width and height. So I can say 512 by 512, because it's a square image. But what if you have images that are not square or different resolution? So what if you have images that is 1336 by 712, 1712 or 1456 by 816 or 960 by 1200? Do you want to constantly calculate what is the tile size? I personally do not, because what is the purpose of having all these numbers if you can't connect them to each other and make it more parametric? Because I like to keep my workflows simple. I like to just change the image and then it has to run on its own. I don't touch the workflows much. Okay. I'm not going to sit and see that, okay, are the numbers correct? Because that's how, as a parametric designer, I have been kind of trained to just make a workflow, add surfaces, it kind of does its parts and gives you the output, So the same way I like to work with ComfyUI workflows as well. So now let's look at the underlying principles of how we will make this parametric. So for instance, what do we want? We want an image that has to be converted into parts. As simple as that. Okay. Now let's say my output resolution is 1024 by 1024. The parts that it will be 512 by 512. So what am I doing basically? I am dividing this number by 2 to get 4 parts. As simple. Which means when I divide it by 3, I will get 9 parts. If I divide it by 4, I will get 16 parts. Correct? It means that whatever input image you have, all you got to do is to divide it by some number to get 4 parts. If you want to get 4 parts, you divide by 2. If you want to get 9 parts, you divide by 3 and so on and so forth. So there is, in essence, we need to just divide numbers. Okay, that's all we need to do. And this is where this particular node comes in handy, which is DERFUU, which basically says automate calculation depending on image size or something you want. And that is what we need, or that is what I need. I don't know if you want to make your scripts parametric, but I like to do that. And the workflow then looks like this. So basically you have your input resolution, which is 1024, or in this case, imagine this is the output resolution that I want, which is 1024 by 1024. And these four nodes are really redundant. What we need is only divide. So I'm dividing the number by 2. So 1024 by 2, we get 512 by 512. And that is as simple as that. Okay, it's just division added here. And why I said these 4 are redundant, because these are just converting integer to float and float to integer back. I wish there was a simpler method, but right now in ComfyUI it doesn't exist. So we need to do this. So you take your input resolution, you divide it by particular number that you want, and these two come in between. So then what happens is whatever was going to divide by 2 parts, we get the output as 512 by 512. If I divide it by 4 parts, I get the output by 256 by 256. And I don't need to calculate always. I generally keep this to 2 and end. I just upload image. This is already set and I do it. Okay. And in the workflow, now this gets updated here. Okay, I know now the workflow is kind of getting complicated. I understand. But again, I said, this is up to you. If you don't want to do this, don't do it. You can directly change the tile width and height manually. What I do, I take the image resolution from here, which is upscale image by. Here you see it's 1024 by 1024. I divide it by 4 parts, and now this should be 256 by 256. Okay, so whatever resolution you want, you can add it here, and that will determine what will be the division. If you divide by 2, you will get 4 parts. If you divide by 3, you will get 9 parts, basically squaring of those numbers. And the last concept, the last technical concept, please stay with me. I know this has been a cognitive offloading or cognitive overloading, actually not offloading. But the last concept is image sharpen, okay? Which basically gives you this node in ComfyUI, which basically means how much you want to sharpen the image, okay? Now this is without image sharpen, this is with image sharpen, and you will see, let's especially look at this particular curtain. You see how dull it is without sharpening, whereas how crisp it is. Or you see this particular bush here, how blurry it is and how sharp it is. So you can add this particular node to add sharpness to your image, okay? So you can see this particular part, the old and the before, this even the reflection looks much better. Or this particular bush, like I said, looks much nicer, okay? And it has only 3 things that you need to play with. The first number is what is the sharpness radius, which basically means when you're sharpening one pixel, how much is it affecting the neighboring pixels. So with 1, you see this. With 3, the sharpening radius is increasing, so it overlaps, right? For example, you have 1, the neighboring I say is 1. So this will be my radius. If I make it 3, so this is 3, whereas somebody is also making 3, somebody is also making 3. So overall they're increasing. And if you make it 5, that means that now more of these overlaps are happening. So inevitably the sharpness is increasing. Okay, I generally keep it to 1. Then coming to the next one, which is sigma, which I have never found to do any change. You see with sigma 1, 5 or 10. If you know what this means, you can comment and let me know. Then there is something called as alpha value, which basically means the intensity of the sharpening. So now with 0.5, you see something like this. With 1.5, it's increasing the intensity of sharpness. And with 2.5, you should now start getting really crazy. Okay, I'm staring at these images. I really don't know what is real and what is fake now. Okay, but generally my preferred parameters are 1 for radius, 1 for sigma and 0.5 for alpha. And this in the workflow sits at the very end. So after you do ultimate HD upscale, you add image sharpen and you have the sharpened image. And this is it. This is your last and final workflow. Again, the initial parts remain the same. This is just me adding as a parametric designer, and this is sharpening of the image. Okay, so now let's see some of the tests that I have done. So I've taken images from my previous videos and I wanted to upscale it. Okay, so the first one is this cat image, which was really blur, and now I am keeping denoise as 0.4, and now you see with upscaling it looks so good. Look at this cat. I want this cat. Okay, you see the fur on this cat has become so big. You see the shininess in his eyes has increased so much, or even the grass that is around his neck has become so much better. So that is what upscaling does. It will push your image to production ready and you can just print it out, Or in the next example, which is this car, I really like this upscaling. This looks like, okay, this could exist somewhere. It has changed couple of things. For example, here you see this indicator was, or reflector was white. It has made it orange, and it has changed this little bit of the positioning of these headlights as well. It has made it perfect circle, but that you can always adjust by changing the denoise value. Okay, but I really like upscaling images. It adds so much detail to your images and it looks really class. Okay, and then I have taken this image of this watch, which has not done much apart from adding textures to the wood and kind of removing the blur and making the background trees better. It has not done anything much to the watch. So sometimes it also depends on what kind of image you're adding to the input. If it is not good in the beginning itself, it is not going to do a good job with upscaling. Maybe you need to upscale it 2 times. Okay, then I added this image of this house and I absolutely love this output. I love it. You see, what I love about this output, number 1, is how it is shown the wear and tear of the texture. Like the concrete looks like, okay, somebody might be living in. This doesn't look like a new polished, ceramic house. The stone texture look really good. Even the grass, to me it feels like there is air blowing through this grass. Even the trees, it has done really nice. Okay, you might feel this is too much. You can always reduce the denoise value and you will get a better result. And now let's look at few more examples. You see I had this image which was done in IP adapter example, and now here you see it was blurry. It is made it nice. There is a lot of texture to the stone added. The people look nice. Whatever was blurry in the background now looks really good. So you can use upscaling for anything. I forgot to tell, for all of these I'm using 4x ultra sharp as the model. For some cases, I don't think that upscaling really helps. For example, in this case, which the sweets were floating on the water, I upscaled it and I think it was a wrong decision, because now it looks like these are not floating but like rested on ice. So sometimes it's not really always good to upscale itself. If your initial image is so good, don't upscale it. It's not really necessary. You see, it's not really adding value to this particular image, and I much rather prefer or make an iteration of this than upscaling. So it's always important also to know when do we need to upscale and not. And the last example is I had to upscale this robotic burger. Okay. And look, it looks so nice. I really like upscaling when it has parts. For example, focus on this central part. You see, it has these mechanical parts and you see how detailed and nice it looks. Even his fingers were looking vague and now it looks so nice. Even the pot was like earth, now it looks metal. And you see the wear and tear of this particular finish. Even the lenses look so clear. Look at this. This looks like some kind of circles. Here it looks so nice. I love upscaling mechanical parts. It does really great. You know, like I can't explain more. Okay, but yeah, this is the power of upscaling. And now let's look at how do we do this in ComfyUI. Okay, so now let's see how to do this in ComfyUI. So I've opened Comfy. Again, I always start from a blank canvas. So first we need to take our image. So I'm going to double click and say load image. And now, like I said, we have two methods. One is your interpolation method and one is your upscale by model. Okay, so first let's look at the simple interpolation method. So I'm going to say upscale. So we say upscale image by. So we get this node and you can input your image to image. And then I'm just going to say preview image. And now let's see what happens. Okay, and let me upscale this 2 times. And then I run this, and now you see only the resolution of the image has changed, but the image really looks the same. Okay, so you see this was the input image, as blurry as it gets, and the same has been carried forwarded. So like I said, no matter what method you use, and if I upscale using this, it is just going to increase the pixels because it is learned to stretch pixels and doesn't really do a good job. Now let's look at those models that we were looking for. So first thing that we need to do is we say load upscale model, and now let's keep this to 4x ultra sharp, which I really like. And then after this we need to say upscale image using model, because we need to use the 4x ultra sharp model. So now my image goes to image and upscale model goes here. Okay, and this is nice. Okay, but now what happens here is that I'm upscaling this 4 times, which might be too much. So then what I do, I connect the image to upscale image by and then make it half. So this I make it 0.5. So now what is happening? Even though we are upscaling the image 4 times, we are reducing by half. So in essence, we are doing it 2 times. Okay, again, a little bit of technicality, but fine. And now let's compare this. I think it's easier to compare. So let's say image comparer. Okay, so this is my input image and this is my output image. Okay, and now let's run this and see what we get. Okay, so you see it's not only one step, there are multiple steps doing here. Okay, so now if you see, this was the input image and you see the output, it has added more details, it has made the image more sharp. Let me go here. So you see what was early blurry and now looks better. Or if you go to this furniture, super blurry, now it looks really nice. Or this stone texture was blurry, looks really nice. So if you just want to upscale by a little bit, okay, you can simply use this method and then you can be like, no, I don't want to do the next ultimate HD scale and all that. That is also fine. With this method, you get a little bit of sharpness to your images, which was really blur. Like you see earlier, I would not see what is happening in the kitchen or anything. And now I can see what is happening. Okay, but now let's see what we need to do with ultimate HD upscale, which is this huge long node. Now let's change few parameters. So I keep the upscale by to 1. Okay, seed, let it be whatever, I don't really care. Steps, like I said, I keep it to 10. And then CFG, like I said, I keep it to 10. Now here this depends on the model that you are using. So I keep it to DPM++. I think it's HDE. This is Keras. Okay. Again, I'm just copy pasting the same parameters. This is 0.4. Linear, right now let's keep it to 512. Mask blur, I will make it to 64. This I make it to 56. This I make it to none. So none of these really matter. And then I keep this to true. As simple as that. The same thing that I showed in the presentation. These are the same parameters. Okay. Now what do we need to do? We need to upload a lot of things. Okay. So first things first, I'm gonna group and bypass this. Okay, although I do need this part, so I'm say Control-C, Control-V. So what I need essentially is I need my input image through load image. I need upscale image model, which is load upscale model. Then I say upscale image using a model, and then I say upscale image by. So this is 0.5. Okay, so basically 4 times, reducing by half, so we increase by 2 times. Okay, now this image is what I want to upscale. Okay. So that's why when I already have the resolution of the image, I don't increase the value here again. Now let's see these next 4, which is basically the way you basic prompt. So basically the first one is load checkpoint model. And here I will take the one that I told you, which is realistic vision. So the model goes to model. And then we need to take positive and negative prompt. So we say clip text encode. So one is for your positive prompt and one is for your negative prompt. Okay, So the clip goes to clip. I will kind of maybe reroute it, and then this goes to the positive prompt, this goes to the negative prompt. Okay, so and then you can put whatever is the positive and the negative prompt that you want. So like I said, generally I keep it to masterpiece, then 8K resolution, crisp details, and whatever you feel like you can add it. Okay, so this becomes your positive prompt. Okay, and then for the negative prompt, you can keep what you don't want, and then we need to add. So the VAE goes here because this model already has VAE in it. That's why I like to use a baked VAE always. And then lastly, we don't need to encode, decode things, nothing, because this gives you image directly. And then we will sharpen this. So we say image, sharpen. And like I said, I like to keep this to 1 and 0.5. And let me connect this here. And now let us preview the image, or I can just simply save the image, which might be useful for future videos. And then I will also want to compare it. So using RG3, which is the image comparer node, and now I will run this. Oops, there is an error. It says prompt, we didn't add an upscale model here. So I can add the same model here. So just connect this to this. Okay, this is going to look a little bit off. What we do, we keep our scripts clean, always love cleaning scripts. And then let's run it. And now you will see it is doing into chunks 512 by 512, and then we also have a tile padding. And now I think because it is 1024 and 512, it has to do in 16 parts. I think so. I think it has to do in 16 parts because we have to double it. No, we have to take 2048 as a resolution. So 512 by 512 will do it 16 parts. So that's why it's doing multiple. But you see how quick it is doing each part, and that is what is helpful, because if you have low VRAM or something, this is really helpful. And now let's check the output. And okay, this looks so good. That means this looks really good, you see. And we don't see the seam lines as well because the denoise value is 0.4 and there is a huge padding as well. Let us see in detail. So first of all, this grass looks really good, and then the stone texture has come up really well. Because also you have to understand the input image is not that great. So it is trying to fix things, trying to bend the seams, but still you see this texture, it looks so good. Okay. If I want to make it better, what I can do, I can increase the denoise value. And now here I will say, make this 1024 by 1024. And then I will run this again. Now this will take a little more time because the images are big. This shows 512 by 512 because this is just a low resolution of what the output is. But when you divide this by over 1024 by 1024, you're actually going to get 4 parts. Okay. And now let's see the output. And now you see with denoise of 0.45, it looks so much better. And it guys, I wish somebody was there here beside me telling me, no, this looks good or bad. I like it. You see the sky looks good. You see the reflection of this sun. I mean, there's now mountains and things like that. But that's why you have to keep playing with the denoise values as well. And now you see this background was totally blurry. So it has added furniture. It has added indoor kitchen. And this is really good. Okay. From this very blurry image, we get this so quickly by just doing this. Okay. Now let's see. Let's take another image. Okay. Let's take this cat. Okay. Let's take this cat and run it and see what it does. So once you do this, like I said, you don't need to change anything. You don't need to change the prompt. You don't need to change anything. Okay. And let's see the time. Where did you go, sir? How did you go? You see 25 seconds. Okay. That's it. No, 25-30 seconds. That is it. The earlier one was 32 seconds. I mean, of course, it's going to depend on the CPU and GPU that you have. Okay. And now let's look at this cat. Okay. Let me zoom in. And okay, I like the tail. I like how it is still keeping the blurriness to the trees. And wow. This is really good. Okay, no, please, why you gave I don't know how many paws it has. 1, 2, 3, 6 and 6. No, it has to have 4. What is this? Okay, we can always rectify that by reducing the denoise value. But look, looks nice. I don't know why you're sad, man. Okay, now one more step what I can do is I can reduce the denoise value to 0.4 and then let's see the output. But before that, I also wanted to add some nodes here because if you know this is a good resolution. What if sometimes you take something like this, which is like 3000 by 3500. Unknowingly, if you add something like this, your computer will burn. Not literally burn, but it will shut down, So what I do, then we need to add something called as nearest SDXL resolution. So you connect the image to image. Okay, let me show you how this works. So I'm going to blur this, bypass this, so that my computer does not get stuck. And then there is another node which is called as preview any. If I run this, now you see it says 896 by, let me copy this, run both of them. So you see now it says 896 by 1152. So that is why nearest SDXL resolution is really important. So even if you have like a super low or super high image, it will adapt to the next SDXL resolution. And you know, this is really important to add, because if I would directly run this, it would take, I don't know how long. Imagine doubling this crazy time. Okay. But now we need to create the image using this as the resolution. Okay. So then what we say image resize with this one, the one that has a spanner. Okay. And now we need to connect the width to width, the height to height. And now this goes to your image, and this becomes your image comparer as well. Okay. So what did I do? So I essentially added a nearest SDXL resolution, which is now changing the resolution to something better. Okay. And here I need to connect the image. So I need to connect image here as well, otherwise it will show an error. And then we use the node called image resize. Okay. And now if I run this, it will not take that much time. Please pray it doesn't freeze me and my computer. So I'm gonna run this. So firstly, we had our input of 3000 by 3500, and the output you see is 1792 by 2304. Because we used this node nearest SDXL resolution, it is adapted to the next SDXL resolution, and it will increase or decrease. So that is really great about this particular node, and that's why I always recommend to add this. So next time, no matter low or high resolution image, I can only change the image and then get the output. Okay, well, let's see. Oh, this is nice. Like, I like how real this snow looks. I had not expected this. I had just used it as a test image, but I really like this. I like the textures. You see, the wood texture has become so nice. I don't know how to explain it. You see, the collection of the snow is nice. Okay, you see the reflection is now nice. And that is really what is the power of Upscale. From here to here kind of gives you a production ready image within 1 minute, 55 seconds. And it is a good high resolution image. So gives you production ready image very quickly. Okay. Now the last part is to add those parametricness to it. This is totally fine if you want to work like this, 100% okay. But I need to manually change these numbers, and like I told you, I don't like to do that always because it's not parametric, you know. So what do we need to do? Okay, so this is my image because it's coming from image resize node. So my image now is this. Okay, so the first thing now I need to do is get the resolution of this image, because now it's a numbers game. So I double click on this and I say get resolution. Okay, so this comes from the Chris tools node, and now this, if you run it, okay, let me pause everything. Now let's run slowly, one step at a time. Let us bypass this. So if I run this, it will show you what is the resolution of the image. Yay, amazing. Okay, but now this is an integer, so we need to convert this into basically a float, because if I need to take it division, right? I told you we need to divide these numbers. So if I take divide, so you see this come from this der fuu node. You see, if I connect directly this width, it will not connect. You see, this doesn't get activated. That means I need to convert this integer into a float. So I say int to float, which comes again from this der fuu only. So I connect this to this, as simple as that. I wish we didn't have to use this, but okay, whatever. And then we connect here. So now this is done. Now we need to add, what do we need to divide it with? So I can double click and just type float. So then you get something called as a floating number. And here I can use, let's say, divided by 2. Now when I say by 2, it will make 4 parts. If I say 3, it will do 9 parts, and so on and so forth. So this becomes my division. And then I need to convert this back into integer. So then I say float to int. I think this should be fine. Okay, so we connect the float here. I know these are a little bit redundant. And then let's see preview any. And then if I run this, see, now this is dividing by 2, and I don't need to manually calculate it, because I don't know what would be this number 896 by 2. I don't know, like, it's so unnecessary calculation to do. Okay, so then this becomes my new width. So this goes to the width of your tile. So you see tile width is here. And now the same thing, we got to copy paste this, which will be your height. So Control C, Control V. Okay. And now the height goes to this input and this goes to the height. As simple as that. Okay. So this your division has to also connect here now. So this becomes whatever I was telling you, the parametric workflow. Give me a second. Let me clean this script up a little bit. Okay, this looks neat and clean. So just to give you a brief of what is there. So in the beginning, we load any particular image. Then we need to resize it because we don't know what would be the resolution. So we say nearest HDXL and then we resize it. Then you use upscale image by a model. Now you could use any of this. You could use 4K ultra sharp or anime or full HD. Let's use full HD here and let's see what happens. And then we need to make it half of it. Okay. If we had all of these nodes as 2x, we would not be needing to upscale half. But because it is 4 times, we need to do it. If you feel like no, your computer can handle 4 times, go for it. Ignore this. Then we have our checkpoint model, which from CivitAI you can download HD realistic vision. Then you have your positive and negative prompt, which will be generic, whatever you don't want, maybe 6 fingers, or you don't want, or whatever you don't want and whatever you want. You don't need to touch this as well. Then we have ultimate HD upscale, which basically has your image, model, positive, negative prompt VAE, and the model that you want to use. You can also say that, okay, I want to use 2 models. So you can say that here I will use full HD and here I will use ultra sharp. Now this is up to you. You can play, experiment and see which combination looks better. And here now I added a little bit of a parametricness to it. And then after that we added a image sharpen node, and then the rest remains the same, which is saving your image. And then this is basically RG3 to compare. And now let's look at a couple of examples. Let's see 3-4 examples so that you understand what I'm saying. Let me add my face and then let's show you what weirdness. I hope it doesn't do completely weird things. I get really scared of adding my faces, but let's keep it 0.25. Okay. And then now let's run and see what we get. And you see the output. I don't know what to think of it. The trees look nice, but I myself look dry, I look pale. I don't know what to think of it, but at least it has retained me. So generally with faces, not so great. Okay, I did a boo-boo here. This is not the image that we want to convert it into parts, which is the one that finally goes into the image of upscale. So I need to push all of this here and I need to connect this image. So the image that is finally going into ultimate HD upscale is what I want the resolution of, not the one that I have just cropped and resized. Okay, so I just changed that here. And now let's take a different image and then run it. Let's take this masala dosa that we created in the previous video. And now I will increase this number to maybe 0.4 because that I find is overall good number. And then let's run it. So let me scroll. Okay, I don't know whether there are these pearls on it. This is nice. I like the texture on the curry leaves. It's really nice. But it made the sabzi as a flower. Okay. But anyway, it looks good. It retains the texture. You see the texture looks nice. And if I could just edit that, this would be a really good image. So we went from here to here. If I want to retain more originalness of the image, I will need to reduce the denoise value. So if you make the denoise, okay, let me do that. Let me make the denoise 0.35 and then let's see what we get. Also, I'm going to change this to ultra sharp and connect the same to the input of this. Okay. And now let's see what output we get. Okay, I like this. I like the curry is maintained as a curry. This looks good. This looks good. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, I'm getting hungry recording this. Why do I keep doing food? But this looks really good. You see the coriander? Super nice. You see this texture on the curry leaf. You see the texture of masala dosa. It's so masala dosa. I don't know how else to explain it. You see the curry leaves here. Looks so good. Looks so good. If I would share this like as a food photographer, amazing. Okay. Now this is done. You don't have to do anything. All you got to do, change it to any image, any resolution that you want, and it will do it. I want to take this cat again. I think we didn't do justice to it by upscaling once. The cat looked a little bit, no, I need to do it another time. So let's upscale it again. Okay, and now finally let's look at the cat again. So let me slide it over. Nice. Okay, this looks, I don't know why it made its eyes up, but still look nice. I am glad its paws are nice. Because it had made 6 paws earlier. So by only reducing the denoise value and changing the model, so you have to keep changing the model that you like. I like it. Like, it looks so nice. Look at his face. Looks really nice. So yeah, I don't want to go more into it. But now once you feel like, okay, this resolution really works and these parameters work really well with whatever your setting of your computer is, it could be GPU, CPU, you can just change the image. The prompt remains the same and you will get, trust me, believe me, this will change the way you make images. Okay, let's take one more. Let's take this night render of this particular car that is there. Again, we did it from the context video. Let me run this as well. So okay, this is nice. I like the headlights more. I like how it has changed. The alloy wheels look really nice. I like the reflection of the road on the car. The mirror looks much nicer, and even the door and the road looks really good. And let's see the sky. This was the earlier one. This is the new one. See, it's so beautiful. I don't know what else word to use. You see how amazing just by upscaling it, and I'm not changing anything. There is no need of prompting. Again, like previous video of IP adapter, there is no prompting needed. And then let's do one more. Let me do this one, which is my face with control net. And again, how long does it take? You see, 40 seconds, 45 seconds, less than a minute. That is nothing. So you can imagine creating an image using IP adapter would take around a minute. This is another minute. 2-minute job and you get so good images. It all now depends upon your creativity, what you want to do. But really, at the end of it, with 2 minutes, we are resolved. Okay, and now let's look at this. So this was the old one. Let me slide it. Oh, I like this. I like how I really like how it makes trees. It like from those nothing noise, it kind of adds detail to trees. It's really nice. You see, all of these trees were just blurry. You see this coconut tree, which was just like, something is fallen. And now it has given it more character and depth to it. And then the same house also looks so nice. You see, that's what I was telling you about. Like, this concrete now looks like, okay, it's wear and tear, and it's, it has those details. Even the wood, the water, you see the water? So nice. This is really, really good. From this, you see how bad? Not bad, but like, okay. But you see, we went to here. And this looks so nice. Looks really great. You can imagine that, and this is 2 times. What would happen if you upscale 4 times? I don't know. Do you want to try? Should I try it right now? Okay, let me try one. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to make this 0.5. I'm going to connect this here. I'm going to connect this here. This might take some time. So let me upscale it by 4 times and see what happens. Okay, and now let's see, that took some time. Let's see first how much time that took. That took 236 seconds. Upscaling it 4 times. Took 236 seconds, which is like around 4 minutes. And the final resolution you see of upscaling is like 3584 by 460. That's too big. But anyway, let me slide over, and my computer is getting slower and slower. But now you see the more details. You see the coconut tree has become so much more precise in upscaling 2 times. And the overall, okay, you see this also looks much nicer. The overall image looks way better when you upscale it 4 times in it. But do you have that much time? So we went from here to here, upscaling 4 times. How wild is this? So you see the difference. So you see this is upscaling 2 times versus 4 times. You see the clarity. You see the clarity with the images. But really, try upscaling images. All you got to do now, change image to whatever image you want. Could be anything. Play with the different models and you will really be blown away with what upscaling can do. It really is the end, in my opinion, of creating images. After creating any image and passing it on to production, you will have to always upscale. Okay, I don't want to talk more about it. But anyway, that's about the tutorial. There are a few more things that I need to cover in this video. So I'm going to jump back to my presentation and that will be the end of this video. And with no matter what tool you use, there are going to be always some do's and don'ts. And let's see some of them for upscaling. Okay. For upscaling, do's, be careful when working with photograph. Okay, so for example, if there is a photograph of face of a human, be really careful. Like, okay, see that you keep the denoise value less. Then divide image into parts to save memory. Then keep the denoise value between 0.2 and 0.4, like I showed in my earlier parts of this video. If you keep it to 0.6, it will keep really distorted. And then have the upscale image, whatever you have, not blurry and clear. Like we saw in that watch example, because it was blurry in the beginning, it did not upscale much. Maybe you need to upscale it twice and then use model specific for your style. For example, if you're working with cartoons, use anime. If you're working with sharp lights, then use NMKD and so on and so forth. And then some of the don'ts, don't use it for human faces. you can simply upscale or double the resolution, but will not really add anything. Then don't set the tile size less than 512, because even the base models, the base resolution is 512. Okay, like I said, don't keep the high denoise value, doesn't really do a good job. And don't include too many white spaces or bright spaces, because then you will start seeing the grid lines. Even if you increase the padding value, you will see some of the grid lines. Okay, and don't apply aggressive post sharpening. Like if you are into that, if you're really into that, go for it. I don't really like aggressive post sharpening. It takes away from the input image and makes it look more AI. And then finally, let's look at the limitations. So always everything has limitations in the world of AI. So from the paper, I took this snippet which says it could not remove out of distribution complicated degradation in the real world. And that is true. For example, in the paper they are showing here, they have twisted lines, and you see when they upscale, they don't do really well. Or when you have this kind of patterns, and I have noticed really when you upscale pattern, it just does a crisscross or a knitted pattern and doesn't do really well. Apart from that, like I said, it doesn't do really well with faces. So this is my face. You see the gums in my teeth don't look really how they are. Or like I don't know what is this randomness added to my neck. So it doesn't do really well with faces. And not just Comfy, even if you take any app, for example this app scale with Magnific, I don't know why I have 2 bumps on my head. Why Magnific? Why? Okay. Or you see in one of my nostril I have 2, so I have 3 nostrils. How weird. It's making me into a mutant. It doesn't really do a good job. And you are wondering why. Because you or me might not be in the training data set. Okay. For instance, it does really well when you have a synthetic face. So this is the face I created using AI itself. And when I upscale it, you see it retains, the eye looks the same, because it is created through the training data of AI. It is not something like a photograph. You see in the earlier itself, the gums are a little bit off. It is going to upscale it and not make it even further worse. Okay. So when you're working with faces, please be careful. Make a synthetic face, upscale it, does really well. If you add your photograph, not so much, you can test it out. And it doesn't really do well with detailed drawings as well. For example, I added this floor plan, and you see while it looks upscaled, you see if I zoom out, this had to be hangers in the plan, and you see now they do something really off. So don't upscale detailed drawings, it will not do really well. And the last one, like they also mentioned in the paper, the patterns doesn't really work. So I put this as an input image and I upscaled it. And you see the bricks doesn't really do justice to the header or the stretcher bond. It looks really off. I don't know what brick pattern this is. So if there is a lot of patterns in your image, it will not do well. Okay. So that's mostly it. I know this was a really technical video with numbers and what we were doing, parametric processes, but I hope you will use upscaling. It is really good. And if you want, you can always share it with me. You can tag me. I always like to see what you make. But that's about it for this particular video. I hope you liked the upscaling video. Thank you for your time. Please do like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.